Mr. Martinson. I'm here to talk to you today about using the graphics computer. The thing that you need to know about the graphics, especially with our ROS report graphics, is the bell rings at the end of the hour at 9:16. Kids are either paying very close attention to what's going on the ROS report, in rapt attention, with sitting in their desks, very focused on what's going on, or the bell just rang and they're all gathering to leave and talking with their friends and doing the sorts of things that high school kids do. More likely it's the second of those two options, let's be honest. So what they see on the screen, they may be paying attention to. What the anchors actually say in the announcements are less likely to be the sorts of things that people pay attention to. It's the unfortunate reality of doing our live announcements the way we do them. So that being said, that makes the graphics that appear on the screen that much more important. So let's talk a little bit about how you set up the graphics computer. So here's the graphics setup. It's a lot like Microsoft PowerPoint. You've got what you're working on here in one screen. You've got what's going live to output here, and that's going to be like a layer on top of the. It's going to be a layer on top of what's live. So what happens is the output from the graphics computer just appears as an additional layer on top of the video. So for example, with the graphic that we've got on screen right now, you can see that that's a lower third graphic. Lower third graphics are good for keeping the anchors going, but also giving some visual reinforcement of what's going on. Studies will tell you that people remember more when they both hear and see something at the same time. So it really does help for us to do those sorts of things. Let's talk a little bit about adjusting the graphics. Starting with, let's say, let's start with our weather graphic here. So I'm selecting a graphic from our choices here. There's a list here of all of the graphics that I can work with. Generally, you want to try to make those graphics appear in the order that they would be broadcast, because it will make the most sense for the person doing the graphics, so that they can just go linearly through from one to the next through your setup here. We're looking at specifically at the weather graphic. In order to edit that specific graphic, you can see that what you want to do is select the item that you want to change. And there's a text tool here. It's very easy to double click and change an item. Let's say our current temperature is, say, 52 degrees. I'm being optimistic, but let's say it's 52 degrees. So I click on that, I add what I need to do, and it'll automatically save that. Now, to make that graphic appear on the air, it's a very simple process. I'll show you. It's just simply select that graphic, click live, and then on the button bar on the switcher, there's a button for take overlay. You'll want to press the take overlay button. The person doing the graphics has the primary responsibility of only pressing the take overlay or fade overlay button. So what they're going to be doing primarily is starting and stopping the graphics. They're not going to mess at all with the live switcher, the next buttons, anything like that. Their primary responsibility is going to be just choosing either fade overlay or take overlay, whichever works best. So that's editing the real basics with this. Let's talk about if you wanted to add a graphic. There's a slot here that I've got a space for, an additional page. Let's say I want to add a page to that. You see there's a drop down here, and in that drop down I can choose a number of choices of different preset graphics that I think are pretty well done. Let's use this and make this into a ROS report graphic. So I selected that. It appears here. And notice that I can edit each of those letters. Let's try editing the text so that it just turns into ROS report. So I'm clicking on each one, going to the text tool, and again you have to select the text tool for every single one. Oh, this is going to take us a little while here. Let's say the A goes away. I can click on anything and hit delete to make it go away. And let's select that letter D and hit delete and make it go. Letter A, HS. All right, so what I've done is I've set up a graphic. It's a very cheesy looking graphic that says ROS report. But notice some things about it. Do you notice that the text here is going beyond the edge of this line here on the screen? That's what we call the safe area. And the safe area is a really important thing for you to pay attention to when you're setting graphics, because what we're broadcasting to is a standard television. And standard televisions have sort of take a bleed of what's on the screen. So they're not going to see the edges. They're only going to take what's going to be in the safe area as something that they can see on the television screen. So you'll notice that the edge of the R and the edge of the T in our graphic is going to go it's going to be too big. It's going to go off the edge of our standard broadcast screen. You won't be able to see that on your on the live text screen, but you can see that when you broadcast. So what we're going to need to do is lower the size of our graphics, and you can do several things to adjust that. Notice that there's different tabs here. One is for view, one is for text and drawing. Notice that if I go to the text and drawing thing, I've got the awesome Comic Sans font, which, by the way, I would say that you won't want to avoid that almost always. Comic Sans is a terrible font and hard to work with, and very much overused. So in any case, if I select the font width, I can adjust it so that it is a little bit smaller, and then if I use the arrow tool, I can move that word around so that it fits within the safe area of our screen. So that's really basic way to edit things. You can also adjust colors here. If I click on that color, I can do a color chooser. I would say use the standard preset colors rather than some of the others. Now, this is a way to add all kinds of colors to what you want, and you'll want to not mix them too much. The more colors you have, the cheesier your graphics get. I would say the more professional that you make your graphics, the better. Now, this is a terrible graphic in that it has a number of colors, weird highlighting on top of it, and Comic Sans. So really bad graphic, but this gives you the general idea of how to do things. Another thing you can do that will adjust the style of your graphic is really simply to just select the text and do a broader sort of change to everything, and that is to choose the style palette here. These are preset text styles that change everything about your font so that they work well. But I will tell you, you want to keep your fonts to no more than 2 on a screen. I would say, generally speaking, unless you have a good reason to, you want to be consistent with the same font all the way through all of the graphics that you're putting together. If you switch graphics with different fonts, it's going to look very amateur, and what we're trying to do is create a professional environment as much as possible. So let's change our ROS report to this style here. I liked this one. We're going to click the R and change that, and click the Oz here and change that. And that does actually make our graphic a little bit better. I'm still not a big fan of the cheesy looking yellow background, but it does allow us to do a real basic font here. Let's see. Let's talk about adding an added third, and that is down here. You can choose a number of lower thirds to work with. What really helps is that anytime you have a person appear on the air, it would be really in our best interest to put their names on the screen. I think people like to be recognized. So when you put a name on, make sure you put a lower third if you're running that person on the live broadcast, or even in post-production after a video has already been done and you need to add an element to the broadcast. I think that's a fairly easy thing to do, and it's a really good thing for you to be doing as you're doing the live broadcast. Another thing that I think is really important for you to pay attention to is as the people are writing the script, they're going to notice the sorts of things that are going to require additional visual reinforcement. One good thing to use for that sort of thing would be to think about any URL, any codes that need to be entered, any phone numbers that need to be entered, anything like that that's going to be something that we want people to remember, but they're only going to say it on the screen, and a visual reinforcement would help with that. That's where you're going to want to put a graphic in, and try to read through the script or talk to the person writing the script ahead of time so that you can do a good job of making sure that the graphics match. Let's see. Another thing that's useful is to add an outside picture, and I'm going to show you how to do that. That's going to require you to minimize the graphics program, and you'll see that this is a standard Windows machine. Also, and as part of that, you've got a number of choices for the browser that you can work with. I am going to choose Safari, and we're going to download a graphic from Safari from images.google.com in order to add some additional reinforcement for a graphic that I'm going to work with. Now, what I'm going to do is go to that website. Let's say I am looking for a, say, sun graphic, maybe. There we go. Turns out there are several. Let's say I want to use this because it's going to be an excessively sunny day. Now, I can download that picture by control-clicking on it, I hope. I guess I have to go to full-size image. Save image as. Now, the thing is, you're going to want to make sure that you're saving that in a spot that's going to work for your graphics program. And that's a little convoluted. So what we're doing is we're going to the C drive to the graphics subfolder. And the graphics subfolder is right underneath the C drive on the computer. It's a place for the person operating live text to be able to find and use graphics for the live broadcast. So I'm going to save the large sun there. Then I'm going to bounce back to my live text, and let's add an additional blank, or let's use this blank screen here. Now I've got over on the side, we've got view, text and drawing, and color. There's also a file bin thing, and in there you'll see a number of the graphics. In fact, it's preset for the graphics spot that you just saved things. There's my sun. If I drag it out onto the screen, it will appear. Now, notice that it's too big. It's ginormous. It's fantastically large. If I were to put that on the screen, it will take up the entirety of the screen. Often what you'll want to do is make that appear in, say, a graphic around the person's shoulder, or an over-the-shoulder graphic. The way you would do that is by simply resizing your graphic. There's our end of the hour bell, but we're going to continue to work here. You simply resize it using the sizing tool here and drag it to the location that you want it to appear. Now, again, to make it live, it appears here. You do the take overlay, and that graphic will appear over the shoulder of the person that's working with the graphic. So that's how you would do that. I think that covers most of what you'll want to do with the graphics program. Again, it's going to require some finesse. It's going to require your coordination with the person writing the script, with the person running the teleprompter. I do think it's a very important part of what we do with the ROS report, and I think that your careful attention to doing a good job with that is going to make a huge difference in the quality of our broadcast. Thanks a lot.